Hello and welcome to the Drop a Stitch podcast.
I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm your other host, Natalie.
And in today's episode, we're gonna be talking about how to know if your design is your design versus copying.
Yes. And this is the second time that we actually record this episode because we recorded this episode last week.
This does not feel right.
No. We've been having technical issues, guys. A lot of technical issues. God. We record this episode late at night on Mondays after Danny's kids are in bed. Mm-hmm. And we're both tired every time. And
it's our fault because we didn't listen to the episode.
But we did, though. We struggled.
Yeah.
We fixed things.
Yeah.
It sounded okay. And then we recorded a whole 45-minute episode.
45 minutes.
And we published it.
Yes. And then I went to listen it because, yes, I'm weird and I want to listen, you know.
Listen, I also listen. It's fun.
I'm like, I know what we said. I just want to listen it again. And I go to listen and I'm like, oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah, I woke up Wednesday morning with a message from Danny being like, did you listen to the episode? We sound like robots. And I was like, what? I was like, oh, no. You have to delete it.
I know. I was so mad. And then I made a story on Instagram just because we already had a few views. I mean, not views, listens.
Poor people that try to follow this episode.
I know. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I'm so sorry because, you know, our podcast is not terribly big yet or super big yet. We have people that listen, you know, like we have followers. And even if they were 10 people, those are 10 people trying to listen to an episode that sounds like all static.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
It's so bad.
I was so mad. I'm like, I can't believe I didn't click the listen button before to make sure it was it sounded okay,
and we typically do. We typically record a little bit, listen,
we do a little
and
test.
we did that, and it sounded fine, and then something went wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. So
we're learning.
Yeah, we're learning as we go, and because you didn't listen to the last episode. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
it was 2 weeks ago, but
we were talking.
Happy Valentine's Day.
That is so true. We're talking about Valentine's Day, what our plans
what we're going to do. Okay, so a little recap. Natalie had a brilliant idea of doing these dessert kind of chocolate fondue.
But the easy way. You chop up all your fruit, dump them on a piece of parchment paper, like on a cutting board or whatever, and then you boil a can of chocolat favori, like chocolate.
Yeah.
And you just pour it on top so you don't have to dip. You don't lose your piece in the chocolate. It's perfect. You pick the piece that you want based on how much chocolate you want, and it's great.
And I thought that was a brilliant idea, and I said in that episode that I was going to try it. But now I can tell you guys that I did.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
We were literally like texting each other pictures of our chocolate fondues.
It was so good. I was so full.
Yeah.
After just a little bit, I was like, I cannot believe how full I am.
We cheat and use that as a meal. Like, we literally don't cook dinner. Like, I was like, it's perfect for Valentine's Day. It's easy. It's simple. We watched a movie and had chocolate fondue. I'm like, I like chop up 2 bananas, 2 apples, like a bunch of strawberries, like some pineapple, like a bunch of fruits. I'm like, it fills you up.
I seen your picture and you put like all the fruit together, and I was trying to line them up so they all were gonna get chocolate.
Yeah. I was like, let's dump them all in a pile so that you have like random chocolate everywhere.
Know.
Danny was like, a perfect little row of grapes, a perfect little row of strawberries.
And I just wasted so much space. I had 2 trays with the freaking paper and all the fruit lined up. I'm like, and then I seen yours and I was like, that makes so much more sense. Like, why did I do it this way? But it doesn't matter.
I know why you did it this way, because you're a perfectionist.
And that should be the opposite way. That should be you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, but it was so good. It was
so good.
It was delicious. We were full, and that's all that matters. We
finished ours. But
Yeah.
that was our meal, so we didn't eat
Yeah.
dinner. So
We had a little dinner with the kids, and then we had that at night after we put them to bed. And we didn't finish the whole thing, but next day, guess who was in there getting his hands on it?
I'm shocked it survived to the next day.
Well, yeah, it survived because we were so full. But then Luca next morning, he was like,
Oh, Luca! I
Oh.
thought Kale.
no. It was
I was
Luca.
blaming Kale.
Yeah, no.
I bring cookies over, and by the time I leave, the cookies are gone.
Oh yeah, no. It was Luca next morning. He's like, fruit with chocolate.
Oh my god, he must have loved
Oh,
life.
he was like, he loved it.
Oh.
But anyways, yeah, it was fun weekend. How was your past week?
It was good. I mean, work is just insane at the moment.
Yeah.
So
Busy.
that's my life.
Busy bee.
Busy bee.
Yeah, same here. Today was, like I said to you before, today was one of those shitty days where you just want to call in sick.
So she
Of-
says.
of
Then
being
I
a-
showed
of
up
being a
here, and
parent.
her kid is being the sweetest thing. He loves me so much.
Oh, yes, he does.
He's just like, come, I'm gonna show you my big boy bed, and like takes me to his room and like, Natalie, we play together, and I was like, yeah, let's play together, and
Oh my
he showed me
God.
all his toys, and it was great. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. Meanwhile, the whole day he was just screaming, and
He just missed
you know
me.
he's just in all that stage. He's like, yes, I can't remember if it was today or yesterday. I'm just lost track of time at this point. He's like, I want water, and then yes, we're gonna get you water. We go get him water. No, I don't want water. Okay, no water, and then water, please. Like, oh my god. Okay.
That's
you
called
know?
the terrible twos.
Yeah, that's a terrible tooth. But yeah, today was.
But they're
one
also
of those.
the adorable twos. He's so cute.
Yeah. I don't want to identify as the terrible because it's not terrible. They're just in a time where they are learning so much
Yeah.
in such a short period of time.
Well, even week to week, I can
Yeah.
see the difference, like in his language and what he, like.
yeah. So I guess they call it terrible because they're just going through so many emotions and learning so much that's why it gets like that. But yeah.
Well, they're just overwhelmed because they're learning, but they don't yet know how to utilize it to properly tell you what
Yeah.
they want. So it's
Yeah,
can see
it's
that
just a
being
lot
frustrating.
of development happening in his little brain at the moment.
yeah.
So that's why he's just being, I don't know, like there's just so many emotions. And today was one of those days where, holy Christ, I just love them to death, but I'm so happy nighttime's here.
Yeah.
But anyways, okay.
Let's get into this.
Into our episode. That was a long intro, but it's nice
We
to
had
catch
2
up.
weeks to catch up on.
Oh, for sure. And to be honest, I really like that too.
yeah.
When I'm
it's
listening
fun.
to other podcasts, I like whenever they are like saying how their weeks were, and
It makes you feel like you know them a little bit
yeah,
more.
it's like we're chatting with you guys, and you are being part of our conversation. And of
Yeah.
course, we have to catch you up in everything that's happening in our lives. So, with that being said,
Let's get into
let's
it.
get into today's episode, which is everything about how do we know is a pattern is yours, and how do you make a pattern without copying other people.
Yeah. What is inspiration? What is copying?
Mm-hmm. Are you heavily inspired by someone? We don't know.
We don't know. For you to tell us. And if I look,
Sorry.
if I remember last episode, basically everything that we said for me went back to just be a nice human being.
That was a little recap.
Every
So
point that
because-
we make and that we will repeat again today
Yeah.
ended with just be a nice human being.
Yeah,
if you
just
wouldn't want other
don't do
people to
shitty
do that
things.
to you, just don't do it to others.
Yeah.
You know where the line is. If
Yeah.
if you stick your little toe over it,
Yeah.
don't do that.
I guess that's one of the good things about that we already did this episode is that we know what we said, and we can go to the straight to the point now and not
Yeah.
like go through the
All the various
yeah
mazes of ideas that we go
Oh, yeah.
down to come back to
yeah to
the same.
just to go to the point that okay, just don't be a shitty person.
Yeah, just be nice.
Just be nice. But okay, so we have a few points that we would like to mention. And like we said in the last episode, of how we find our inspiration, that's gonna tell you already if you are trying to copy somebody, if your design looks too similar to somebody else. The first point is that whether you are making something simple or not, you don't own a stitch.
No one owns a stitch.
Mm-hmm.
A stitch. You can put together a combination of stitches,
which makes your pattern
that creates a unique pattern that is yours. But a stitch is not owned by anyone.
Yeah.
Knit one, purl one does not belong to anyone.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's the combination of those that belongs to someone as their pattern. But then again, if someone is making a pattern in super bulky with this needle and make this hat, that's their pattern. But if you translate it and make it in, like, if you're crazy and make it in super fine yarn on tiny needles, then you do all the math and the work to get there.
Yeah.
So then we get into the moral high ground of, if you make the exact same thing but in a different yarn, is it copying? Is it stealing?
So what we said in that point is, if you are making a super basic hat, let's say a knit one, purl one beanie, which I have a couple of patterns in 2 different yarn ways. If somebody makes the same hat, which is totally fine, because like you said, it's a super basic stitch, anybody can do it, and it's such a simple hat. The thing is that here's where you can tell if they're copying your pattern or not, and that is the number of stitches that I cast on, which is obviously gonna be different if they're using a different yarn. But if they are decreasing the exact same way that I'm doing it, for the exact same amount of rounds, and it's just extremely similar to the point that you're like, okay, that's just basically my hat in another yarn weight.
Yeah.
Then you know it's copying.
Yeah.
Whether that is the same yarn weight or not, if they are doing the exact same thing, then yes, you can make the hat and make it different, and then it's your own.
Yes.
Right?
As a general rule, if you buy a pattern from someone and think, oh, I could change this, you're heavily inspiring yourself from somebody else's pattern.
Well, yeah.
That's a no-go. However, if, for instance, you make this super bulky hat, and you only make super bulky hat, and you make nothing else, and you're interested in nothing else because you hate little yarn.
Yes, which
and
I do.
I'm this crazy person that loves super fine yarn, and I'm like, I hate bulky yarn. I don't know why anyone would ever do that. But if I'm that person, and I want to make your hat pattern, but on tiny little yarn, I could message you and ask you whether you're interested in making that pattern, because I would want it. And if not, if you're okay with me making that pattern.
Yeah.
And then if you give me authorization, then that's fine.
Of course. That's something that I remember we said too, is like, if you are doubting, just message the person. If you're planning on making something that it's different. I remember asking back in the day to this girl, DeBrose or whatever her handle is, because I made a pattern for a folded brim beanie. And I remember one of her friends said, oh, but that's very similar to hers. So I remember messaging her and asking her what she thought. And to be honest, I didn't like her answer, because she said to me, if your she was like, well, first of all, thank you so much for reaching out and you know, taking the time to ask me this. This is super kind. I wish everybody did it or whatever. And then she's like, if your design looks a little bit like mine, then I wouldn't want you to do it. And I was like, in my head, like, girl, we're talking about a super simple beanie.
Yeah.
It's knit all the way around. It is not a combination of stitches. She always sells her pattern.
Yes.
She doesn't have anything for free.
Yeah.
I have never bought her patterns. So I have no idea how she decreases, how she does things. I have no idea how even her patterns look like.
Yeah.
So I made the whole thing by myself, and she was saying if it looks a little bit like mine, and I was like, that's kind of like an open answer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Looks, I don't think is in, like, it's hard to say what looks, because if you're like, ooh, I can recognize that this is like a Knit One Pro one, and then this is this stitch, and then this is that, and then you copy that combination. No matter if you're figuring out by yourself the cast on, the decreases and everything, if you're like, ooh, she's got a folded Knit One Pro One brim with this stitch, and then it decreases. If you're trying to replicate something that someone has made, that's copying. So that's a no.
Yeah.
But if, like, I mean, anyone can do a folded brim.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. I was like, it's just a simple double brim.
Like, there's the basics that are just too simple that you can't really claim anyone is copying anyone. And I think, I don't know if it's that hot, but you had asked us, I know, at Knit Night a few times, and you were like, guys, I'm thinking of making this. Like, what do you think? And, like, on some, we're like, yeah, Danny, like, that looks very similar to this one that we've seen. And you hadn't even seen it.
Yeah.
And we're like, maybe you shouldn't. And you were like, okay. And then others, you were like, like, it's super simple. And we're like, yeah, it's too simple. Like, no one can be like, this is my pattern.
And I feel like that was one of those, because it's literally a knit hat. There's nothing to it.
Yeah.
There's not a...
So just...
So then in that aspect, it's good that you reach out to other people. Even in my case, that I thought, oh, okay, this is super simple, but I'm still gonna ask if it's still, like we said at the beginning, just to be nice and to be respectful. And I would love for someone to say that to me too with my patterns. I know some of my patterns uses super simple stitches, and that's okay, but the way I do it and the yarn I use and the hook I use, it's different. Like my chunky blankets, everybody, it's like, why are you using 12 millimeter knitting needles? And I'm like, well, because I really like the loose look that the blanket gets using a 12 millimeter hook. And I know that everybody else uses 10 millimeter or smaller because they like, or that's because because that's what the yarn recommends. But I want to go a little bit different, though my pattern is super simple. The way I do it's different.
Exactly.
So, then if somebody comes and start doing the same thing with the same hook and whatever, you're like, okay, that's a little bit...
It's too similar for my liking.
Exactly. Even though it's a simple stitch.
Yeah. And the other thing we were saying, too, is, like, where you get your inspiration for things will give you a good idea whether it's copying or not. Like, we've both mentioned when we were doing the inspiration episode that we don't look at other knitters. We don't look at what's been made. We don't look at what people are working on because we don't want to be influenced by it. If you're, looking at something, some, like, mass market, like, stuff, you see this shirt and you like the color combination, or you like, whatever the color work on it, and you're like, ooh, I can translate that to knitting, and that would be cool. Like, it's another medium. If, like, I've seen multiple times on Instagram people that will, like, embroider something to look like something, or will like, there's so many mediums of crafting, and we can all do the same thing in different medium, and it will look very different and be super cool. So if your inspiration is from something that is not knit or crochet at the beginning, chances are you're creating it from scratch from that inspiration. So then you should be good to go. But the second fold of that is, if you think of an idea or, like, have a plan, look to see if it's already been made.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Like, obviously, like,
getting...
A scarf is a scarf. Like, we've all made scarves, but you can kind of look, like, did someone use that stitch combination before? Does the sizing look the same? And you can kind of be like, wow, okay, this looks very similar to what I had in mind. Maybe I won't do it. This person's already done it. Or, like, okay, like, this is kind of the same size, but, like, I can't find anything with the same stitch, or I can't find anything, like, mine has pocket. No one has thought of putting pocket on a scarf before. Like, maybe I'll do that,
Yeah. So, to me... it's very different if you are finding your inspiration looking at other knitters and crocheters work versus actually having your idea in mind and looking to see if it's already made. So it is very important, we said to last week, well, the last episode, to try to find if it's already made. If you have an idea, because sometimes I will have the craziest ideas in my head, they're the craziest idea, but then I go and it's already made. I'm like, I guess it wasn't that crazy then. You know, because...
And we have to remember that we're human too, and our brains work in completely like fucked up ways that we don't even know.
Yeah.
And we might have seen something in passing somewhere, and it's stored in our brain, and then we think it's our idea, and then really
That's so
isn't. Like, our brains are a wealth of information. Like, there's so much stuff in there. Like, you've seen a picture for a second, and it could be somewhere deep in there, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna make this scarf, and I'm gonna make it in this color, and you don't even realize that like,
you've already seen it.
You've already seen it. So like, and your mindset is very different if you're looking for inspiration versus if you're looking to see if someone has made similar. Like, you're either looking to like soak up information, or you're looking with a critical eye, being like, ooh, is this the same? Is this not? So like, your mindset is very different. So like, don't look at other makers like in the field if you're trying to find inspiration. But do if you want to confirm whether the idea is like new or yours, or like if it's been made, because your way of thinking will be different, and you may just come across with like the exact same thing, and you're like, oh, maybe I've seen this picture before, and somehow it registered in my brain, and I thought this was my greatest idea. And
for sure. So the way I do it is I will go on Instagram and I will search for the hashtag. First, if I'm doing a combination of different stitches, I rarely look, because you know, it's very hard that someone will have the exact same combination of stitches, especially if I'm using multiple stitches. So I rarely look for that. But when I'm doing basic things with basic stitches, or even if stitches that are a little bit more complicated, if I'm using only one stitch, I go to Instagram and I search for the hashtag of, let's say, a scarf. I put knitted scarf or crochet scarf, and I start looking and to see if somebody, you know, what they have made, if it's there what I'm thinking. And then I also search for the stitch name. I know some stitches have different names depending on where you are. You know, we all know the moss stitch is the same as the linen stitch, and you know, there's just
the granite stitch, and
it's just the same stitch, but it has just
multiple names.
So I go and I also look for the name of the stitch to see if there's somebody that already made that scarf with that specific stitch. And then that's for Instagram. And then I also go on Pinterest, and I also look for, you know, whatever I'm doing, and also for the stitch, more so for the thing itself, like a scarf in this case, for example, more than the stitch, because on Pinterest you put the stitch and you get like a whole,
you get more tutorials than you get
library
items.
of things. Exactly. You get tutorials more than that. So that's what I do. And if I don't see anything there, then I'm usually okay, because I'm like, okay, now I'm not gonna start looking into
plus like
further.
If a basic search doesn't bring it up, like, you don't have to go to the confines of the internet to find something, because I mean, I'm pretty sure at this point, if we look for anything hard enough, we can find it on the internet. So like, maybe someone has done it in their basement, you know, like, and like 3 people know about it, but like, you know what I mean? If you can't find it and you look like extensively enough, but not without going crazy, then you should be good to go. And I do that too with my pattern names, as stupid as that sounds. Like, not only the stitch, but the combination, and like whatever it is, like a scarf or a sweater or whatever, but even the name, you don't want to steal somebody else's name. So I'll search the hashtag on Instagram and see if somebody has used that name. I'll look on Ravelry to see if someone has used that name, especially on Ravelry, because you can't use the same name twice on Ravelry. Like on Instagram, it happens often. I'll click on a hashtag and there's like 2 or 3 people that have the same hashtag and the same pattern name, and I'm like, oh, that's annoying, because then you can't click on the hashtag and see all of these items, right? And then, so I searched Ravelry is a great way to see if the pattern name has already been
Yeah.
used or not.
That's
And
one
then-
thing that I don't do. I don't care
You
about
don't?
the name. No.
But a lot of your names, though, in your defense, are like Spanish or can be said in Spanish. So they're a little
Yeah.
bit less popular in
Yeah, that's true.
the majority of things. But I look because, I don't know. I mean, I say this like I have 1,000 patterns. I don't. They're written, most of them. I have to
They are
publish
there.
them. They're going to get there this
Yeah.
year. But like I've already like, and I've posted about some hat patterns for like 2 years now, saying I will publish them, and I haven't gotten
That's a
there.
classic.
But like I've made sure that these hashtags for these names were not taken.
Yeah.
So if you click on it, like all my pictures, because nobody else has done it, because I haven't published a pattern.
Yeah.
All my pictures are there, right? So it's nice too when you like. You do free patterns, you do a lot of them, so it's a little bit
Yeah.
different. But if you're doing especially paid pattern, I find it really nice to be able to like search on the hashtag
Yeah.
and see what everyone has made. So that's something too. You can like, even as far as just the name of the pattern,
Yeah.
like it's nice to be original and like do
Yeah.
something different, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I again forgot what I was gonna say.
Girl, you do this every episode.
I know. Oh my God.
Mom brain.
I know.
We were talking about searching the names.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't do that with the names, but I already said that. I can't remember what I was gonna say. This always happens to me, guys. Like I'm just flying in
It'll
the
come
sky
back
at
to
this
you.
point. I know.
You had a rough day.
I know.
The other thing we talked about in the other episode that disappeared, let's say it that way, was pictures.
Yes.
Pictures that you take and that you publish in your pattern are your own. You cannot use someone else's
Oh yeah,
pictures.
we were talking about that. Yeah.
You cannot use someone else's pictures. Whether
Yeah.
you're buying their pattern and selling a finished item,
Even if they're free.
you cannot. Pictures belong to whoever took them. Like
Yeah.
you cannot like buy a pattern or use a free pattern and be like, I'm gonna sell this hat and
Well,
I'm gonna use their pictures.
That's the thing. Then you're scamming your customers.
Yes.
Because you're telling them that they're gonna get this exact product that they are not getting. There's no way they're gonna get that because you didn't make it.
No, and even not just like, the quality of the way it's made, but like on your pictures, for instance, you have your tags. They're not gonna get
I
that
know.
tag, so they can't use your pictures because it's wrong.
I know. It's ridiculous. When they do that, I've had not in the English community, but the Spanish community, a few people trying to sell hats on Facebook. And I'm like, you're trying to sell my hat with my pom-poms, with my tag, something that I did.
And the chances of someone sourcing the exact same fur for the pom-pom, making it the same way,
Yeah.
making this
Looking
like,
exactly the
it's
same.
not going to be 100% the same.
No.
And generally people that do that tend to be people that are maybe starting, don't really know what they're doing, or don't really know like that you can't do that, and therefore normally their quality isn't that great.
Yeah. Exactly.
So even pictures, you can't steal pictures.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe people do that. And I also told you the crazy story we're gonna tell to our listeners. The crazy story that I told Natalie, that a couple or few years ago, I was looking, I can't remember where, on Instagram probably, or Facebook, I can't remember. This girl that was translator petite knit.
Yes, I was going to bring back that
Patterns.
point. You also cannot take someone else's pattern, whether you
No.
buy it or not, and translate it and sell it as your own.
She was-
Unless you've asked permission and that
Yeah.
person has specifically given you the right. But normally they'll pay you for translation and they will sell
They
it,
will
or
sell.
they'll give you a percentage of
Yeah.
the sale or whatever. But you cannot do that.
This girl was translating petite knit patterns, which, if you have seen her work, it is magic what she does.
She has her own
It's-
style. You can tell what's
Exactly.
hers.
Exactly. And this girl was translating the patterns to Spanish and then selling them. But I forgot to tell you, the tricky part is that somebody will tell in the comments, like, oh, do you sell the pattern? And she will be like, I'll DM you.
Yeah.
If I'm selling my pattern, I want the world to know that that's my pattern and that they can buy it and where they can buy it. I'm going to publicly put it there.
Yeah.
Yes, you can purchase from the store and these or here and there. I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, I'll DM you. No.
That is already a red flag.
Oh, yeah. And then...
But she also claimed that that's not what she was doing.
Oh, yeah. Somebody said, like, oh, this looks like the exact same model as Petite Knit. I think it was the Anchor. One of those pretty colors that she makes. Somebody said it looks exactly the same as hers. And she was like, oh, no. I just seen this sweater and inspiration on the internet. And I looked at the picture and I just made myself one. I'm like, girl, you cannot make Petite Knit sweater just by looking at it. And you can't tell me that you seen a picture and you made that the exact same. It was her pattern. It was the exact same thing.
Plus, it goes back to what we were saying. Even if she had seen a picture of the Anchor sweater and was like, ooh, I can make it for like my kid in a smaller size, and just winged it to look the same, you still copied a maker. Like,
exactly.
That's a no-go from the get-go.
Yeah.
Even saying that you saw a picture of something knitted and you just made your own and you're now selling the pattern.
It.
That is not okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You copied someone. That's a no. At that point, you might as well own up to the fact that you just translated the pattern. Like, that's better for you.
That was terrible. I remember seeing it and I was like, I just cannot believe people have the balls to do this.
And the sad part is that, like, people that buy a pattern will, like, look for it, come across it, not know, and buy it. And you can't blame, like, the buyers, and that's why people do this, unfortunately, because... apparently being a nice human being can be painful.
Yeah.
Because people will buy the pattern because they don't know any better, right? And so they stand to make a decent amount of money by stealing other people's work. But, like, how do you live with yourself? How do you sleep at night knowing that, like, you're ripping off and, like,
I'm making money off of this girl that, and I don't know if it was because of that, but, you know, Petite Knit now has her patterns translated to multiple languages, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was one of the things that made her do that.
I hope so for her.
Yeah, having people that wants to, because her patterns are just beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I understand that a lot of people will want to make it, but why would you want to make it your own? Yeah. And knowing that, and it's just so funny because you're not trying to make a simple design. You're trying to copy a designer that has almost like 700,000 followers on Instagram that everybody in this community knows about her.
Yeah.
You're trying to copy the queen of the queens of the knitting.
Kind of gonna be obvious.
You know, exactly. It's in her designs are so obvious. Like you see something and you're like, oh yeah, that's Petite Knit.
That's her style.
Yeah, that's her style. So it's just like, you're just so dumb. Like, why?
Yeah.
You know, like, just...
like we were saying at the beginning, just be a nice human being.
You just be nice,
Don't
please.
do to others what you wouldn't want done to you.
If you don't want that, somebody doing that to you, ripping your designs, just don't do it to other people. Just create your own. If it's a simple stitch, look around on Instagram and try to see if it's already made. And if not, just go ahead. But don't be heavily inspired by other makers. If you are lacking of inspiration, just get off of social media for a little bit, because that happens sometimes.
Yes.
You're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to make. I am lacking of inspiration right now. And I have had those times, and I'm like, I'm just going to get off of my Instagram and everywhere, because I don't want to be forcing myself
a break so that it can create.
And forcing myself to find inspiration. I'm like, I just gonna take a little break, and then I usually I think about something.
Yeah.
You know, but you need to take breaks too if you're having a hard time.
And if you can't think, honestly, like the best course of action, if you really can't find an idea, even if you've taken a break from social media, like buy somebody else's pattern and make it.
Yeah.
Like there's also something to be learned from making buying patterns from other people, seeing how they make their patterns, seeing like, I mean, I've done so many test knits.
Yeah.
And I've learned so many things, like German short rows and like ways to decrease and ways to increase and ways to do things. And I'm like mind blown. And I'm like, oh, I would have never known that you could do it this way.
Yeah.
And you're only going to know so much yourself. So by like, take a little break, buy somebody else's pattern, support them, make the thing. Yeah. And just that will spark ideas like, oh, if I can make this stitch and do this, like, ooh, maybe I can translate that and do that. And then that's a technique that you're taking and you're translated into something completely different. And that can be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always a good way to go. But yeah, I think like today we wrap these.
I had another idea that just popped in my mind.
Okay, go
and
ahead.
then I lost it. And then I thought of it again. And then I lost it again.
No way.
While we were talking.
Oh, no.
Yes, I was like, oh, and then I completely forget what it is.
Well, you said that you have bought a lot of patterns and test knit.
Yeah.
And come back to Natalie, please.
Hold on, let me take a break. I'm going to refill my water and maybe I'll think of it. Hold on.
Water has been refilled. We're back.
I still don't have the idea.
She still doesn't have her idea.
I lost it. Listen.
It's okay. If we catch it for next episode, we'll
bring it back.
We'll bring it back. Yeah, I hate when that happens though.
Oh. It was good. Like I thought of it and then it went away and then I talked about something else and then I was like, ooh, that. And then
we should have little notepads in here, and if we think about something, just write it down.
Because we lose something every single episode.
All the time, and it just drives me crazy.
I know. I like literally sat there for like 10 minutes being like, no, what is it? And like the second we're going to end this recording, I'm going to be like, ooh, it was that.
Oops. But yeah.
Well, I guess that was our episode then.
That was today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope we already checked. It sounds good, but fingers crossed. Still, anyways, just
everything goes well with the upload, and you guys can actually hear this episode.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for not having an episode last week, which we did, but you know.
It's the beginning, guys.
Yeah.
We're getting all the quirks and the kinks out. It's going to be fine. Soon enough.
One day we're going to have such a nice equipment and lights, and we're going to be able to record video and everything.
That would be so cool.
That would be cool. It's just like...
We're not quite there yet.
We have the equipment to do that. The only thing is, I just don't want to get myself ready for a video, number one. Number two, we would need microphones that... You know, the arm that stands, because right now we are on an improvised desk.
Yeah, it's a board over a desk holding our two microphones on random boxes.
Exactly. So yeah, so that's one thing that we would have to do. Most of the people that I see, they don't get ready or anything. They're just like chilling on their couch, sitting.
Yeah. The
camera is far enough that you're not looking at their faces. You know, it's more like just the two people sitting talking, which would be fun because I don't know.
That would be fun.
It would be fun. Some people like seeing other people's talk. I like my podcast to just listen to them because I don't have the time to look at the screen.
Yeah, agreed. But people that watch on YouTube would most likely enjoy having something to watch instead of just a picture of her face.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, so maybe that's something we can consider in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for now, I
hope
you guys...
next year.
Yeah, for next year. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode.
I hope it was still relevant.
Yeah, I hope so. And remember that if you're listening on Apple Podcast, Google, or Shopify. I was going to say Spotify. Please rate us 5 stars because that will help us boost our podcast and, you know, to get shown to
more people.
Yeah. And if you are listening on YouTube, please leave a comment. We haven't gotten any comment yet, but we have views and people listening, but
Yeah.
nobody has commented.
Be the first commenter.
Yes, be our first
Break the
commenter.
ice.
And we will sure to mention you in the next episode.
For sure.
That would be so
That
cool.
would be so fun.
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
All right. Well, have a great week, everyone.
And we'll talk to you in the next episode.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.